It's something that I think if we had heard this 50 years ago, we would not believe it. Torah tells us, our Torah tells us, that at the end of history, the nations of the world are going to come to us, and they're going to say, we want to follow you. We've heard that God is with you. It's chapter 8 in the book of Zechariah. 10 men from the nations of each country, each nation, will grab hold of a Jew, saying, let us follow you, we've heard God is with you. Can you imagine reading this passage 50 years ago and saying to yourself, what is he talking about? Is he on LSD, this prophet? That the nations of the world are going to come to us, the Jews, and ask us to teach them about godliness? But I want to tell you that it's happening now as we're here tonight. That over the past 20 years, and increasingly over the past 10 years, there's an emerging movement among people who come from Christian backgrounds that are seeking the authenticity of their own movement, Because they're asking the question, well, who was Jesus after all? Was he a blonde Viking from Denmark? Right? Or was he a Jew? I went to a conference in April that was organized by a group in Sydney. There was a Catholic order called the Brothers in Christ. And they had about 80 of their members came to Vancouver, British Columbia, and I was invited to speak about Judaism. And they all had two questions for me. I mean, they asked me hundreds of questions, but every person there had two questions for me. First, they wanted to know, Rabbi Skobac, what's with the shaking? You know, that really puzzled them. They didn't know what to make of the shaking. But they also all asked me, Rabbi Skobac, what's with the strings coming out of your clothing? What's with these strings? And I said, if you want to know about the strings, open up your Gospel of Luke to the 8th chapter and the 44th verse. So what are you talking about? I said, yeah, look at Luke chapter 8, verse 44, which says that a woman came and touched the fringes of Jesus' garments. I said to them, what do you think this was? You think he was so poor he couldn't afford clothing that was whole? He was wearing tattered clothing, and she grabbed onto his shmatas because there was no... He was a Torah-observant Jew. He wore these tzitzit. And what's happening in the world today is the Christian world, not because they're being influenced by us. There are no Jewish people or organizations trying to change the Christian world. This is happening among themselves because they are studying for the first time in 2,000 years their own story. They're looking into their own books. And they're seeing stuff that's freaking them out. They're seeing, wait a second, Jesus was a Jew who kept the Torah. His followers all kept the Torah. And many of these Christians are beginning to wonder, so wait a second, if James was the leader of the whole movement for 30 years, how come there's never any books written about James? Why can you go to Christian libraries and not find anything about James? And this is bothering them. There was a book written last year by a Lutheran minister named Jeffrey Butts who was puzzled by this question. How come James has been eliminated from the Christian story?